Hello to all my innies and outies out there, and welcome to today's new Severance video. After the 3-year wait, Severance Season 2 has finally arrived, and as I suspected, it's already sparked some new incredible fan theories about what's really going on at Lumon and where the story goes from here in this new season. Now, like everyone else, I've got my thoughts and theories on this incredible show, and I have so many questions after this latest episode. So with that being said, I plan on making these like a regular weekly segment after the episode and after my weekly breakdown, and I'll make these separate videos like today where I'll share my thoughts, but more importantly, I want to highlight your theories that you all left in the comments of my last breakdown. So let's give this a test run from the testing floor and have some fun and see if this is something you all would like me to do on a weekly basis. So with that, let's discuss some major talking points from the Season 2 premiere. Now let's start this off by talking about something I think we can all agree upon, and that's the 5-month time jump in the Severance reform story being a bunch of nonsense. Now, as many of you have already mentioned, the actual photograph here is the same group photo they took back in Season 1, but also, as Sydney pointed out in her comment here, the surrounding area is taken from the same time former US President Dwight Eisenhower visited Rio de Janeiro in the 1960s. Now, I also want to call BS on the idea that MDR refiners being famous on the outside. Yes, the actors in real life are famous, which, by the way, just a kind of complete side note here, who else loves the fact that Apple TV has finally marketed one of their elite shows? Seeing the cast on TV, them doing that pop-up appearance in New York City and recently at the Knicks game, I just love them and I love seeing them. But getting back to the topic at hand, I don't buy for a second that they're famous to the outside world. I think that this is a tactic by Milchick to make the innies think that they actually made a difference. I also don't believe that he actually approached the others to return. Hell, I wouldn't be surprised if we learned that Dylan and Irvin were actually fired and Helena was told by her father not to return after their attempted coup in the finale. And lastly, I put to question the whole idea that it's been 5 months since the events of the finale. As I mentioned in my previous video, the timing of everything just doesn't add up, from Milchick not having his office set up, to Mark opening scene with his facial expressions being the same one that he had in the finale when he told his sister that she was alive. Everything to me that Milchick said in that episode was mostly 98% a flat out lie in my opinion. Okay, now that we got the light stuff out of the way, let's get to the big ones here. What's the deal with Mrs. Huang? Did she die? Did she come back to life thanks to Lumon? Does she have any family ties to Gemma, or is she Gemma's and Mark's daughter? Let's start with, did she die at one point? Going back to the scene where she introduced herself to the MDR department, she mentions her last job was one of a crossing guard. Now, as many of you has pointed out, as you can see on the screen now, for example. Now, as the commenter AR said, I think Miss Huang was chosen because she's presumed dead on the outside, and that they needed a child so that they wouldn't be any violence towards her the way Dylan attacked Milkshake, which, by the way, I think we should call Milkshake for the rest of this season. But a very interesting comment here, but also following that up by this one here. As Cubs Cowboy says, I think Mrs. Huang actually died, kind of like Mrs. Casey, and she's a clone or something, could have died at her crossing guard job. Now, the rest of the comment that they talk about here about Helena, we'll talk about that later in the video, but focusing on that last point here, let's make some connections. We know that it's believed that Gemma died in a car accident. Could Miss Huang have been there? Did she have anything to do with the actual car accident? Now let's think about this. Her being a crossing guard, Gemma allegedly being killed in a car accident, but let's add more fuel to this fire. Now, for those that have read the Lexington letter, the story that focused on the ex-Lumon employee by the name of Peggy. Now, spoiler warning for those that plan on reading it but haven't read it quite yet. I'm going to spoil something about it, so you have been warned. But for those that have read it like myself, it was revealed that after Jim Milchick shut down Peggy's story, we learned that Peggy died in a car accident. Obviously, Lumon has something to do with Peggy's death. If you all read the story, you all know what went down, what she discovered. But that makes 2 car accidents that's been mentioned in the show, and Mrs. Huang being a crossing guard doesn't seem like a coincidence. Now, there's a whole separate video I can make talking about how I think Lumon is taking injured bodies or dead bodies from the hospital or the grave and making them like severed employees full time, and just remembering what PD told Mark in Season 1 about how there are people who live down there full time. Now, to that last point, let's bring up this comment by Sabrina, who has a lot of great points, by the way, and I'm just going to point out and focus on the one where she talks about Mrs. Huang coming out of a box. As you all can see here, they said that Mrs. Huang came out of a box in Milchick's office. Now, for those that don't know what they're referring to, here's the box in question. Is she a prototype manufactured by Lumon? Her being some type of robot reanimated item could explain why Milchick was so mean to her at certain points throughout the episode, because maybe he isn't a fan of these reanimated robots. There's a lot to consider about Mrs. Huang, but keeping things grounded for a second and putting aside my thoughts of her being once dead and being a robot now, what if Lumon had her severed with the permission of whoever her parents are, or maybe even requested by them when she was very young, to be a part of some type of horrible program where they collect the youth and they make them productive members of the Lumon workforce? Or getting back to the weird sci-fi crazy Severance talk, what if she's a part of a Lumon program that may or may not have something to do with the refiners do, where new prototype managers have the previous retired employees' brains downloaded into a younger body in order to make sure that they run things properly? Now, last but not least with Mrs. Huang, I saw this comment a lot about her possibly being the child of Mark and Gemma, or maybe even being a clone of Gemma. Now, personally, I don't see her being the child because of the timing of what we know about their relationship. Now, we don't know how long Mark and Gemma were together before getting married, and we don't know how long they were together in general before her death or alleged death, but we know that Mark had his severance procedure shortly after Gemma's death, again, alleged death, and that was 2 years back. So the math doesn't really add up to me. Now, we do know that Mark mentioned on his date with Alexa back in season 1 that him and Gemma tried to have kids but didn't have any luck in doing so. But again, I don't see her being their child to be a big reveal in the season, but hey, I could be wrong. Now, addressing the other part about her being like a younger version of Gemma or a clone of Gemma, that to me is very interesting, and I want you all to just take a look at this clip.
I believe Miss Casey is a clone of Gemma, which is why she behaves so strangely. This could explain what the goats are for, cloning experimentation.
And what MDR does.
Identifying abnormalities in clone genome sequences.
This sounds like what Lumon would be doing in like a super boring version of Severance.
You should ask that. Why, you're on the trail, son. No, I'm just kidding. You are very far off and wrong. Bing!
Now, that came from a recent interview with Entertainment Weekly, so take that as you will. Cloning could be off the table, or just playing devil's advocate, their response was directly in relation to that particular question and not necessarily removing the idea that clones could be in the picture. But I'll end this section of Mrs. Huang by throwing this out there. What if she's some type of genetically made child of Mark and Gemma? Remember when they were playing that ball game, we saw Mark seeing Gemma's face. Could that be the show hinting at the possible connection between the three characters? Now, saving the hottest question on the internet right now for last, and that is, was it Helly or Helena? Was Helena Egan impersonating Helly R to infiltrate the MDR team? Now, there were so many people online discussing this, as well as in my comment section. Now, after the fourth rewatch, I'm officially 50-50 on this. So first off, to address those that believe that that was Helly in the actual episode and thinking, well, Helena wouldn't be able to have access to the Severance floor. She would get on the elevator, she would pass the Severance barrier, and she would be replaced by Helly R. Well, let's just think about this. We all know that Lumon, or Helena herself, probably has the authority to just simply turn off the barrier and use the elevator to get to the floor. And in that theory, she's doing this to gather intel on what the MDR department knows, and she's posing as Helly R. Now, for those that are in the camp that was Helena in the episode, let's talk about some of these talking points. One of the big indicators is when she exited the elevator for the first time in the episode, Mark ran over to her, gave her a hug. Look at the confused face that she had during that moment. It's almost like she was somewhat taken aback by that warm greeting, even though the last time she saw Mark, she was the one that engaged him and given him a kiss. Now, she was also the first person to notice that the Severance floor security cameras have been removed. The importance of that comment being that that would be something someone would say to confirm and to lean into the idea of trusting Lumon again, and that they have indeed changed their ways from the video that they showed them, and Milchick saying that they removed all the cameras and microphones. Now, to address the big question is, and that was, if that was Helly R, why would she make up that discovery about what she found about her Audie's life? Well, first and foremost, I want to say I agree with those that says that Helly R would lie because she's embarrassed to admit who she is, who her father is, and her being the main reason why the Severance program exists in the first place. But we still have to address the elephant in the room, and that's that she lied, and the lie itself was very random and odd. So let's just think about the comment that Helly or Helena said about the gardener. If that was Helena, it would make sense that she would come up with some weird thing to say that she saw a gardener, because you would imagine someone in her position, someone of her family caliber, probably has a 24-hour staff at home, and the first thing she talked about was, well, a gardener. Now, to address Graham's comment here, it said that you miss Helena fumbling and filling around for a computer switch. Helly R would have known exactly where that button was, as her entire life has been about it so far. A lot of great points you all mentioned, man. Like, again, I'm 50-50 on the idea, and I think it would be so interesting if Helena replaced Helly, and not for even reasons of Lumon spying, right? Like, let's think about this. What if she's jealous of Helly R and Mark's relationship, and she wants that experience of romance firsthand, because in the real world she's like shut off to romance because of who she is and how much money she has and who her father is, right? So she wants the experience without having to be Helena Egan. I think that's a great place to end this video. I don't know about you all, but I had a lot of fun making this. Besides this show being incredible, one of my favorite parts about it is reading all you all's comments and theories. It just adds to the overall experience being just so damn fun. So with that, share your thoughts about everything we discussed in this video, and if you all like this format and would like to see more of these type of videos, please let me know by liking this video, sharing this video, and again, keeping the incredible theories going in the comment section for more videos just like this. Now, I'll see you all soon to discuss episode 2. Now, if this is your first time here, welcome to the channel. Consider subscribing and sticking around and checking out some other content. And if you all want to show even more support to the channel, consider joining the channel memberships, where I plan to have more exclusive content coming pretty soon. You all are awesome, stay safe, and I'll see you on the next video, and remember,
The work is mysterious and important.